Hello viewers, this is your host Sushil and welcome to my channel. Remember the channel to subscribe is Sushil Shalot, and at this channel I am here with my new video. In this video we are going to see how to use count and count related functions in Excel. Basically we are going to cover these many count and count related functions: count, count A, count blank, count if S, dcount and dcount A. So friends, let's begin with our video, and there we go with the Excel application. Well, here is the front page of this video or this Excel file, wherein we see the serial numbers from 1 to 17 quoted there on in column A, and in column B we are seeing list of certain numbers and couple of words. Now what is count? Count is a function wherein from a given column or given database all numerical values are counted. So each numerical cell or each numerical value will be counted as one. So all these will be counted. For example, let me give a demo here. So when I say count, open parenthesis, and it asks for the value 1, value 2, value 3, I choose the range here from column B, cell 2 up to B18, and I close the parenthesis with this selection. When I say enter, it counts only the cells which has got numerical values. So as you see, it is not counting the cells which are having text values and not counting the cells which are blank. So 17 minus 4, that is 13. Those are the count of the numerical value cells. The next function here is count A that I am going to demonstrate to you. Count A counts the non-empty cells. So if you see here in the database or in the list, we see serial number 8 and serial number 10 correspond to empty cells in column B. So now if we apply this count A function, and here also it asks for values from value 1 to value n, I am choosing this range and closing parenthesis. So when I say enter, it counts only those cells which has got some value keyed in. So what we see here on the screen is out of the 17 values, there are two values which are empty. So remaining 15 are counted here. So count A counts numeric as well as text values. The third one, what we see here in the list is count blank. Let me give you a demo what count blank is and then explain you how it is different from count A. So when I say count blank and choose the range here, in this only a range input is required and not the value inputs. So once the range is selected, it gives me only those cells which are blank. So if you see on screen, as I already told you, B8 and B10 are those two cells which are blank. Now if I opt to say delete this cell, the count blank immediately goes to 3. I'll say Control Z and retain that value there. In this way, count blank counts only the blank cells, whereas count A counts the non-empty cells. So here, as we see, the two cells which were empty or which are seen as blank are not counted by count A. Let me give a caution and a demo here. Suppose if this cell has got a value of double quotes open and double quotes close and say enter. As soon as I say enter, count A count changed from 15 to 16. Basically, it has counted this cell, a blank cell, as non-empty cell because there is some text value which is equal to null. So any null cell is counted by count A. I give you a repetition of the statement. Any null cell is counted as a count A cell or a count value cell, whereas count blank does not consider a null cell to be blank. So by default, it continues count blank continues to consider cell B10 as blank. So the count blank value here continues to be 2. The next one is count if. So what is the difference between count A and count if? Count if, as the name states, something is counted if at all the criteria mentioned is considered or fulfilled. Here I would like to give a word of information that here COUNTIF or COUNTIF function only considers a single criteria. So if I say COUNTIF and choose it, it asks for a range and a criteria. So for example, I'm going to consider this range, give comma, and then subsequently I can choose criteria. So now if I go and choose from cell L4 here, the value here is greater than 75. I'll close the parenthesis and say enter. So as soon as I give this value, I choose from L L3 here, and it gives me, or it returns the value 10. If you can see, there are 10 values here which are greater than 75 in this range. So it returns the value 10. Now, there are two ways of giving the criteria. The first way I already showed you. The second way is here. One can opt here to give the value in quotes and say greater than 75. It should return the same value what it returned earlier, and there it is. There it is, it returns the same value. So these are the two methods. The first method I explained you by quoting the value in the cell, and the other method I have quoted the value within the function. So if at all I choose to give this value and say enter, the benefit of doing it this way is, in case if I want to change this value from 75 to say 50, there it is, the answer here in the cell G10 immediately changes to 11, and so on and so forth. User can easily append the cell of the criteria, and as a result it is much faster and easier to get the values of the COUNTIF in the result. Now COUNTIF can be chosen to be used multiple times. Let me give you example here. So if I say COUNTIF, there it is. Now it asks for a range. I'm going to choose the range and give the criteria as L L4 and close the parenthesis. If I say enter, it will return me the value which I had got earlier, that is the count will be 11. But now I add here the COUNTIF function second time, and as a result I can opt to give another criteria in addition to the first criteria what I given. So I'm going to choose here this cell L5 and close parenthesis. So friends, here I have given the COUNTIF value twice. This can go on as per the requirement for further on. So here when I say enter, now what it does is it counts if the value of the answer is, or the result is, or the cells in the range are meeting the first criteria as well as the second criteria. So the COUNTIF value here is something like adding the two values. If I change this value to 75, I get the value 17. So basically what it does here is it count ifs the cell or the criteria L4 is met, that value turns out to be 10, plus the second criteria, the value turns out to be 7. So this way the answer turns out to be 17. So if you see, the cells which are larger than 150 are here. I am highlighting those. There they are on your screen. So this plus the values of the cells which were greater than 75, or rather lesser than 75, vice versa. So as per the criteria, the answer, the solution here changes accordingly. So now let me go to the next explanation or demonstration here. COUNTIF can be used along with certain wildcard. There is another video wherein I explain how wildcards can be used, and here I'll give you a demo from this range. Now I want to find out the value of, say, the text cells wherein I will be using the wildcards, and here I'm going to use a wildcard, say question mark. So now I'm going to give open quote question mark wild character, and then the text which I want to be followed in the search criteria. And there is a criteria I have given the criteria as question mark as a wildcard, and then ARROT. So now in this range, COUNTIF will search for this text value and it will return me the counts as 2. So as we see, the two words parrot and carrot meet this criteria, and therefore with wildcard characters we can find out multiple ways or the ways of using the wildcard as required. I'll give another example here. So if I am you going to use the count if function here with the wildcard, and this time I am going to give the same range, but now I'm going to use some other wildcard. I'll give the double quotes open, then again I'll say P, give the wildcard asterisk and close the double quotes here and close the parenthesis. Now what it is going to do is, in the given range, it will search for all the words or text starting with P and followed by n number of characters, text characters, and return the value. Here if you see, the P alphabet is small, whereas in the range the P alphabet of the word parrot is capital. Still it returns the count as 1. So in this way one can opt to use the wildcard characters question mark and asterisk as per the requirement. Now let us go to the next function, that is COUNTIFS. COUNTIFS is different from COUNTIF in a way that in COUNTIF, as I explained you earlier, only single criteria can be mentioned, but in COUNTIFS multiple criteria can be mentioned. So let me give a demo here, or already I have opted here one of the values, so I'll just try to repeat the same here. So now I'm going to give a demo on COUNTIFS, COUNTIFS, and there it is. I have to choose it. In the parenthesis it asks for the criteria range 1. So the criteria range 1 here I'm going to choose this range, give comma, it will ask for the criteria 1. Now I'm going to choose the criteria 1, values greater than 75, then give a comma, it will ask for the criteria range 2. So there is a difference between count if s and the way I showed how to use count if multiple times. Let us have the demo first and I'll explain you. So criteria range 2, again I'm choosing the range here, the same range, give a comma, and now criteria range value 2, that is I'm going to choose function as or the cell as L5, and I'm going to close the parenthesis. When I say enter, it gives me the value 4. So now what it counts is, it counts the cells which has got value of the numerical greater than 75 and lesser than 150. So here both the conditions are to be met, and then only it will give the count. So here I purposely mentioned these values in brown color cells. I'll just highlight it for your benefit. So these four cells meet these two values or these two criterias, and therefore the count if value comes out to be 4. So friends, based on these two values you can immediately make out the difference between the two applications of these functions. So count if when used for multiple times is not equal to count if s. Count if is a summation if used multiple times, is a summation of various criteria one by one, whereas count if s is summation of various or multiple criteria all taken together. Fine. With this statement, I hope you have understood all these differences and the ifs and buts in this application or the beauty or the usage of each of these functions. Let us move on to the next function, that is dcount. Now dcount is something that one can make out from the name itself. D stands for the database, and something that is counted from a database is dcount. Now here on our screen in this sheet we are seeing a database here or a table here wherein number, that is serial number, the age of the person, and the assets of that person are quoted. Now what are the requirements of dcount? Let us go and check it. When I say is equal to dcount, I am going to choose it. So once I choose the dcount, it asks for a database. I'm going to choose the database from top to bottom. including the titles of these columns. Once done, I'll give the column. The next thing what it asks for is the field. Now the field is nothing else but the title of one of these columns which we want to count from. And here I want to count the asset, so I'm going to choose the value. Two ways are there. I can choose to give double inverted and say asset, or the second way is I can choose the title of this column, that is cell number C4, and define the field here. Once the field is defined, I can give comma, and the last thing what it asks for the criteria. Now the criteria here is nothing else but for the cells A2 or A1 onwards up to the criteria which are mentioned here. So I'm going to choose the criteria as A1 to B2 here, and once done I'm going to close the parenthesis and say enter. As soon as I say enter, now it gives me, or it returns a value 1. So now what does it do here is, I'll just explain you from the database, that is A4 up to C14. This is the database it has chosen. I have named that database or the table as data numbers. You can follow my another video which explains how a table is to be formed and how it has to be named. I'm not going to explain you here in this video, but I have named this table as data numbers, and so it has chosen all the values from the data number table. The next thing what it chose was the asset. From the asset column, the count will happen, and the criteria here is from A1 to B2, wherein criteria A, or the column A, has got a criteria of age limit greater than 50, and then the column number B has got the criteria B2, which says the asset has to be larger than 50. Now if we go and check in the database, this is not a big database, so for the age larger than 50, I see the cells here. These represent the age limit or the age greater than 50, and from the asset the value here is greater than 50,000. That turns out to be only one value, that is in cell C9. So from the database, from the asset column, it has chosen to count only one cell, and hence it has returned the value 1. Fine. Here in the earlier one I had chosen the asset, wherein I had chosen the criteria from A1 to B3. So let me give demo about that also. So when I say is equal to dcount and choose the function dcount with the database here chosen, the field value here, now I'm going to say asset, and once asset is chosen, here I have chosen the field value by selecting the title of that field. Then I give comma, and now the next requirement is the criteria. Here I am going to choose the criteria from A1 up to B3. So this is the criteria that I have chosen. So now this is going to include the age limit greater than 50, asset value greater than 50,000, and then the age limit lesser than 30, and asset value is open. Let me close the parenthesis and say enter. Once done, it gives me the value 5. Now how it has returned me 5 values is, the first criteria is made by this, that means count 1. The second criteria is age limit lesser than 30, that means 2, 3, 4, and 5. This is how the dcount has returned me the value 5. Friends, I have given you a demo here on dcount with a database as a table. This database can only be a simple database, not being a table also. This function works with a database which is not table also. Now what is dcount A? Dcount A, as we understand from count A, it is similar to count A. Here it is going to count the cell values from numerical as well as text. So if we see this database here, in this database, in the table, what we have chosen here, the table name was data number. So in this data numbers table, all the values are numericals, and none of them are text. So if at all it turns out to be text, then the value immediately goes off. The count here does not give value count for the text value. Whereas if we go on for dcount A, it will always continue to give the value as a summation or consideration of numerical as well as text value. So now if I go again here and copy this formula from here, I'm just saving my time to retype it, nothing different. I'll double click this. I'll go here and put the formula here and say enter. So if you see here again, it goes back and gives the value as 4. Whereas here it gave the value as 5, right? So now basically what happened here is it gave me the count as 5 because it did not disregard this value 0 because the asset here was a text value. This is how dcount comes into picture. It gives it returns the result for numerical as well as text values. Now here in the next sheet, I exclusively explained what is dcount A. Let me give a demo here. Already the database here is of some color of some buildings, and the number of buildings are here, the flats within the buildings are here, and the sale values here. Now 76.8 sounds to be little weird because the sale of a flat can be 76.8, a non-integer if at all it is in other certain units of currency. Well, let me not get into it much. Let me give a demo here of dcount A. So now what I'm going to do here is the same way as we did earlier. Here this database is not a table. I have chosen the database from cell A5 to D11, including the title of the columns here. Then what I have done here is I have chosen the field as sale. I have choice of giving it into a double quote. Here it is. Once done, then I have given a comma, and now next thing what it asks is for the criteria. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to choose the criteria from A1 up to E2 and close parenthesis and say enter. So as soon as I enter, the value returns me the result 1. Let me explain you. So now what in dcount, the range has been chosen, then the column title cell has been chosen as the field. So now what it is going to is from this database, from this field, that is column D, that is the cell value, that is the field, it is going to check for the criteria which have been defined here in this cells A1 up to E2, and here the criteria it reads out to be the color has to be equal to blue, the building values has to be greater than 5 or greater than 5. The next criteria is building value has to be less than 20. In other words, the building value has to be between 5 and 20. The flats values are open, and the sale value is what it is going to count and return because I have given the field as sale. So now it is not going to chase the flats in this case. So what it did is it chose for the color blue, then it chose if the building values are between 5 to 20, and then since both the criteria were met, it returned the count of the cell as 1. This is how the answer 1 was returned. Now if at all I choose to have this value something different, I change the criterion from A1 to E3 and say enter, the value here turns out to be 2. Now what it does is it checks for the criteria for the color to be black, the building here is equal to 9, and then it returns the cell value as a count if at all the criteria is met. So if we check on black, the building value here is 9, so the criterion was met, and so it gave a count of 1 for the cell value 45. So these two values or these two cell values 100 and 45 were counted, and the value of 2 was returned here in this way. So friends, let me tell you, while choosing the text value here in the criteria, if you if you pay attention to this thing, what was happening here was it returned the value of blue as true only because the value blue is equal to blue was quoted into double inverted commas, so that text values was taken as an input, and then the value which was to be stated to be equal to has been mentioned here. So there are 2 is equal to in the given criteria cell, and this is what I wanted to bring to your notice here. So take care when you are defining it this way, and it is very much essential you do not make mistakes while defining the criteria. Defining the criteria field and the database is what is the basic requirement of the count and decount functions. So once those are quite correct, the results are for certain to be correct. So now basically I have just listed down to summarize what we learned in this video. So count is it returns the count of the cells in numbers. Count A returns the value of non-empty cells. For non-empty cells, anything that is null cell is considered as non-empty. COUNTIF returns the count of the cells which are meeting the given criterion and not criteria, that is singular, whereas COUNTIFS returns the value when it is plural criteria. Count blank returns only the value of the cells which are blank, and a null cell is considered to be blank. Dcount returns count of the numeric cells in the field where the criteria stated are met in the given database. Whereas Dcount A counts both numeric and text values in a database as per the field and the criteria defined for that given requirement. So viewers, I hope I have been very clear in my demo and my explanation about count and the related functions in Excel, and this video will be very useful for you for your usage and applications in respective domains. May be technical, may not be technical. Well, if you like this video, do not forget to express your likes at the YouTube channel. Share this video with all those who you feel need to know this about these functions in Excel through this video. And as I said in the beginning, do subscribe this channel for many more important and useful videos. We'll keep meeting in our series of these videos. Keep safe, enjoy. Bye bye.